What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
All right, I think we are all set. What is going on, everybody? Welcome into episode number 602 of Underground Sports Philadelphia, presented by the City of Vineland. We are unfortunately not live, but we did get the tutelage to fix our internet here. So hopefully by next week's show, we'll be back live on Twitch. But everybody listening on podcast app of choice and YouTube, welcome in to another episode of Underground Sports Philadelphia. It's KB and Matt coming at you from Underground Studios. We got a lot to dive into, from the Eagles, the Flyers, the Sixers, the Union, and whatever else may come across the desk while we are recording this episode. But before we get started, make sure you guys are following us on the socials at Underground PHI on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Facebook.com/UndergroundSportsPHI, Twitch.tv/UndergroundSportsPHI. You can follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Castorina. You can follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts in audio form. Leave a 5-star rating and review. It goes a long way for helping the show continue to grow, helps more people find Underground Sports Philadelphia, and allows us to continue to do awesome, dope stuff that we have in the pipeline in the coming months, and makes it that much easier when you subscribe. So continue subscribing wherever you get your podcasts in audio form, and subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. It's where you get full video episodes of this show twice a week, full video episodes of every show on our network, live streams, shorts, clips, original video content. One of the funniest no context videos is coming out from last week's Top Bins episode, where Dom did not inform Matt of any of the rules of a blind rankings test.
I'll get him back.
Turned out hilarious. We're going to have a bunch of those coming out from all of our franchises on our YouTube channel in 2024 and beyond, so keep a lookout for those. We're at 715 subscribers right now on the YouTube channel, trying to get to 800 before the end of January. Let's keep the subscribers rolling. And, of course, once we get to 1,000 subscribers, we got a whole bunch of different celebrations going on across our company for all of our franchises. So get us to 1,000 subscribers sooner rather than later. And smash that like button, ring the bell icon, leave a comment down below with your thoughts on everything Matt and I discuss on the episode tonight. And, of course, this show is presented by the City of Vineland, and the City of Vineland Municipal Calendar features city-organized, city-sponsored, and city-affiliated events that are of public interest. The calendar, which is accessible at vinelandcity.org, is a good way for residents and visitors to build awareness, remain engaged with city government, and participate in local events. You can also follow the City of Vineland on social media via their Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube pages. And through these tools, you can stay connected to the community and get important announcements about programs and services offered by the city. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season. And big thank you to Security 21 Security Systems and Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated for their continued support of this podcast. What's going on, Matt?
I'm living the dream.
The Eagles' dream/nightmare carries on into the postseason. They choke away the division. They are the number 5 seed, and they are heading to the one place that we said we didn't trust them a lick, and that is down to Tampa, Florida, to take on Baker Mayfield with Zyn containers in his pockets, Mike Evans, and the rest of the Buccaneers.
I don't trust them anywhere.
Valid.
So there's that. Losing at home to the Cardinals and getting dog walked by the Giants 24-0 at halftime. I don't know how you feel confident about them beating anyone, because those are two of the worst teams in the NFL. And, there's certainly no one. I said before, I was saying the only team that I think that could have made the playoffs on the final day that I would have trusted the Eagles to, I would have felt confident in getting a win against, was the Saints. So that's the only team with worse vibes than the Eagles coming into the final stretch of this season. But I don't personally feel, and then obviously you pick up injuries through that game too. which is just like worst case scenario type of stuff. You have Jalen with his finger and AJ Brown with his knee. So the fact that they're going into that game clearly not at full strength either, and I don't know if Devontae Smith, what his availability is going to look like. So for me, it's about as bad as it gets, and it's crazy how quickly this season turned from positive to negative. This team was 10-1, and it has been awful ever since.
I brought this up on the episode that came out on Monday to Pitts, and I mean, there's one thing we can hang our hat on is we set an NFL record this year. The Eagles are the first team in NFL history to start a season 10-1 or better and not reach 12 wins.
That's probably even in a 12-game season. They probably
that page was blank in the NFL record books until this year.
Well, that I'm honestly that about sums it up. It's weird because. It's weird for many reasons, but there are two ways. One, I think it's weird because we're already kind of writing the obituary for this team, and like they're still alive, they're still in the playoffs, but nobody has talked about them. I've listened and read a lot of stuff over the past few days about like playoff matchups and like storylines and people making picks. People were talking about like NFC teams like maybe like teams that like wild card teams especially that can make a run or like long shot bets. I have heard and read no one saying anything about the Eagles. And in other years, you'd be like, well, here's your, if this was 2017, this would be the underdog masks and stuff. You're not even underdogs against Tampa Bay somehow. But with this team, it's like, that's actually justified. Why would you? Why would you ever, speculate that this team is making a run in the playoffs? So maybe this is actually we find ourselves into back-to-back Super Bowls somehow. But it's bad. It's my wife was asking me, she's like, what's wrong with the Eagles? And I was like, it's just bad vibes. She's like, what does that mean? I was like, I can't really describe it to you.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
I was like, I don't know how to put it into better terms, but they just have bad vibes. Like everything about them is just bad right now. She's like, I need it more clear. So I was telling about like the coordinator issues like coming into the year and then throughout the season, all that, and I was like, and then on top of it, they just have bad vibes. Just, baby has bad vibes.
And I mean, if things could take a turn for the better because maybe, just maybe, Brian Johnson is too distracted to game plan, and the Eagles find their way on offense because they won't have to listen to him. Because report came out today from multiple big names who cover the NFL that the Carolina Panthers are looking to interview Brian Johnson for their head coaching vacancy.
Well, here's the crazy thing is there are a ton of like coaches swirling around now. And even college football is getting in on the act because Nick Saban retired.
Yep.
It's like, maybe, hey, decide, maybe just step down to college football. So I don't know. Maybe we could like ship Matt Patricia there. Like that's Alabama and maybe like USC are like the two schools where like ex-Patriots guys seem to go to like kind of rehab themselves.
Hey, maybe Bill Belichick's going to Alabama.
Apparently Atlanta, which is who knows, but yeah, there's a lot of, it's definitely I think one of the crazier like off seasons already in terms of coaching carousel that I can remember.
There's 8 open now?
Yeah, and I mean 2 of them like Pete Carroll and Mike Vrabel being done.
Kind of shocking.
Like to me were surprising, like really surprising moves. And we expected there to be quite a few openings already, but now there's tons of options out there.
And somehow the Bears are not one of them.
Somehow the Bears are not one of them, which is I'm sorry, Bears fans, but at least you'll have Caleb Williams or Drake May. Don't pick another North Carolina quarterback. No, that is the ultimate test of your like will in scouting. Is like, are you willing to enter that zone again and at least like make a consideration?
It's the push the button guy meme.
Honestly, yeah, I don't think this team is good. I think they could beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They already went to Tampa Bay and won this year. I would say that's before the defense really fell apart. I still think the most shocking indictment of this team this year is Matt Patricia's involvement
Mm-hmm.
from day one. Even I don't know. I do not understand him because he was a consultant before.
And it was
the season,
weird
right?
because he was hired, and then it was like, no, we didn't hire him, and then that's when Slay came back, and then it was like, oh yeah, we actually did hire him.
I would love an article about whose idea was this.
But
This-
Wolf, come on the podcast.
Honestly, this guy was tainted goods forever. Like for the
Mhm.
last 6 years, this guy has been even before he went to Detroit. People were like laughing at him, and he failed miserably in Detroit. And even when he was like defensive coordinator of the Patriots, it wasn't like those defenses were great. The sole reason that the Eagles have a Super Bowl is because Matt Patricia's defense was on the other side, and they could not make a stop all game. They had over 600 yards of offense, the Patriots did. You've never lost a Super Bowl with that kind of offensive performance, except for when you went up against the Eagles and your defense was that bad. Like this is not new, and I just, that to me is the biggest indictment of this season, and is the biggest red flag, because it's more than just like football has variance. That's malpractice.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were a doctor, you would be getting sued for like assigning that treatment. It's like, so going into a cold, like you have a cold and it's like, well, we're gonna have to put you under and open you up. Like what? How is that the solution?
I mean, we've said it for months now that Brian Johnson, Sean Desai, all the coordinators outside of Mike Clay, oddly enough, who last year was the one guy everyone wanted fired, was the special teams coordinator of this team, and that's been like the one like decent aspect week in and week out of this football team this year. But Brian Johnson and Desai and Patricia all have to be gone at the end of the season, and I just want the Carolina Panthers to know that Brian Johnson is more than qualified to be a candidate for your head coaching vacancy. I think he brings such a unique tutelage to an offensive game plan. I think he would make Bryce Young a perennial Pro Bowler, and you'd be lucky to hire Brian Johnson as your next head coach. With that being said, I was talking to some people potentially about, because Nick Sirianni, he's not going to get fired. I would make that bet. But this coming off season is going to be the most important for him to retain his job. How would you feel if the Eagles it would probably be a one and done, but I think it would be opportunistic of them for this window that they currently have. Offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury.
Maybe. I was listening to the Philly special today, and Tim McManus was on there, and it actually got aggregated, and like it turned to this thing where like people were saying that he said that the whole thing was that like Sheil Kapati was like had all these questions for him. It was like, sketch out the path for if like what changes next year. Like, is there even a possibility that Nick Sirianni's not that coach? He's like, yeah, like he could, like like it's, I don't know, I don't think it would be bizarre. But strangely, I don't think it would be the craziest decision if Sirianni was not that good. Like this season was bad, but I think it's fair to give him another shot next year because he's brought you to the playoffs his first 3 years.
Only coach in franchise history to do that.
They were talking about that on the shows. Like, has there ever been a coach that has made the playoffs in 3 years straight and been fired? I think the only example they come up with was Jimmy Johnson, and that was like completely different set of circumstances. But yeah, I think the vibe that he gave off during that podcast too is that like he feels that they'll sit down with Sirianni and want to have like a conversation about like bringing in coordinators and have like a list of guys or have like an honest discussion about the direction. But they brought up a good point is that they did that with Doug, and Doug Peterson's they said like a little more of an affable guy. Like he's definitely a little more kumbaya, whereas I think Nick Sirianni is a little more, he has more edge to him, and maybe he's not as receptive to that. They said that's maybe the pathway for, maybe it's like a mutual thing. Like, well, maybe we should just, go our separate way. I don't know. It seems very unlikely, but Cliff Kingsbury, I don't know. I think getting the coordinator right is hard because like with Shane Steichen, right? Like he was an unknown quantity, right? Like it's not common that a lot of times you like have a high awareness of coordinators, like outside of some of the bigger names, but it's hard to find those guys. And I think you're clearly seeing that Shane Steichen was a really big part of this team last year. Even Jonathan Gannon, say whatever you want about him. The defense still was not able to play against elite offenses last year, and that showed, obviously in the Super Bowl, but even in other high-profile games last season. But like, he has that Cardinals team playing well. Like, he clearly, we were all making fun of him
knows how
before
to
the
substitute.
season. I mean, honestly, like before the season, we were all kind of making fun of him, but he clearly has instilled some kind of like culture and attitude in that team where they were still playing very hard and seemed to like him as a coach. And this Eagles defense, certainly, whether he was able to give more simple direction or whatever, like this Eagles defense was playing well under him. And part of that was the talent that they had. But I don't know. I think the coordinators have been the biggest reason I think this team has not had success. And then I think there's been some individual performances that have not gone very well. And again, this all sounds like an obituary. This team still has a playoff game. They won 11 games. And it's like, I've never had this experience.
And I mean, if you're an offensive coach, you kind of have to know the Eagles are going to have an offensive coordinator opening at the end of the year. You got to be on the phone calling anybody in the Eagles organization, because it's just such a ready-made situation, just based on talent alone. Offensive line, 2 Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber wide receivers, a top 5 tight end in the NFL. You have a MVP runner-up quarterback last season who's continuing to, carry this team in multiple ways and is a young quarterback. I think any offensive-minded coach, whether they're, a head coach trying to get back into it, and it's like, okay, I'll take a coordinator job and, work my way up, or a coordinator coming in and making a lateral move or whatever it may be, you got to be like licking your chops if you see the opening for the Eagles OC spot.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, this is a great setup, plenty of talent here. I think that's why it's so frustrating. It didn't look, but here's the thing, this offense could look a little different next year, especially like some key pieces on the offensive line could be retired. Like Jason Kelce, people have questioned his retirement for years now, but certainly possible, like that he could hang it up after this year. Someone like Lane Johnson, like no guarantee that he's back or healthy either. Like it's just defensively too, like there are definitely question marks about. I just think that this team could look a little different, and we felt like last year that maybe the window was going to be open a little longer, but in the NFL it just isn't. You have these short windows, and now you're with Jalen Hurts' non-rookie deal, and that just makes all this harder, and that makes your margins that much thinner, and it becomes a big challenge now.
And I mean, you have this Tampa Bay matchup, and before we get into that, it's brought to you by our pals over at PHI Apparel Company, the official merch partners of Underground Sports Philadelphia. If you want to stand out in the crowd, gearing up for Monday Night Football, for Super Wildcard Weekend, and look your best, whether you're going out to the bars, hanging out with your friends and family at home, or anything in between, gear up for Flyers, Sixers, Phillies are about a month away, and also obviously Eagles and Union, and of course Underground Sports Philadelphia. Get your merch from PHI Apparel Company, and when you go to check out with your cart all filled up, ready to go, use code Underground for 10% off your order from our pals at PHI Apparel Company, phiapparel.co, and use code Underground for 10% off your merch orders. I mean, we talked about it last week and the week before with Tampa Bay, like not being able to trust this Eagles team against them. It's another Monday night game. What are the odds that Jalen Hurts has some sort of sickness? Because that's what always happens with Monday Night Football and Jalen Hurts.
I think the Tampa game earlier this year was also Monday Night Football as well,
and
wasn't
he
it?
had some sort of, under the weather and still played through it. And then the Chiefs game, he wasn't feeling his best, and the Christmas Day game,
no salads. It's one of the highest rates of foodborne illness is off of salad and vegetables, greens, things like that. For eating any red meat, it's cooked all the way through. No chicken. Can't risk any salmonella.
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands all the time. Rice. I don't know. No.
Ginger ale.
Yeah, ginger ale. Keep it everything, and just bubble boy it up. I don't know. Man, I'm still shocked that they're somehow favorites in Tampa Bay.
That blew my mind.
I was
that they opened up as favorites.
I was really surprised by that, but I guess at the end of the day, it is Baker Mayfield, but
He's played well.
He's played well, and this Eagles defense has given up great performances to everyone. Like there's not been a soul. I think the Patriots could put up, like when they did, the first game of the season, but the Patriots as they are now, you could platoon Billy Zappi and Mac Jones, and I think they could put up like 17 on this Eagles team.
I mean, it's no guarantee that Slay's back, and I don't think there's been any reports of like him even being close to being back. So you can kind of chalk that up as you're missing your best defensive back yet again. I don't know who the hell's going to cover Mike Evans in this game.
God.
Because he's going to you know how you always see certain NFL players too, and sometimes they're much older than you think they are, and then there's some that are much younger. Mike Evans feels like he's been in the league for 15 years, and he's our age.
Yeah. Well, it's also too, like, every year we talk about his record and that he's had like 1,000 yards for so many years, and it's that also I think makes him feel, because when someone's in the league for like 8 or 9 years, like, wow, that's a long time. It's like, well, it's actually not. I mean, it is, but they're not that old, despite being around for such a long time. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's and what sucks too is like defensively, Winfield Jr.'s had a really good season, and I just don't trust this team, especially if everyone's not at 100%. I can't believe it, but the playoffs themselves are going to be a lot of fun, and it
script
sucks.
writers went crazy.
It sucks that we're like the worst and we get relegated to Monday. I also hate that they're doing a Monday night game.
They're doing a Monday night game.
How is that fair, too,
There's
by the way?
There's a Peacock exclusive game.
Yeah, Dolphins Chiefs exclusively on Peacock.
Got to get the Swifties to buy into Peacock.
Well, don't blame them. I will say, Premier League fan, so I've been on the Peacock wave for a bit now. So.
That's what a lot of people have said, too, between that and college football, where there's exclusive, like, Big Ten.
I think all the big, like, reality shows, like, I think Vanderpump is on there.
The Office.
The Office is on there, and then, like, I know the Olympics, like, you can watch all the Olympics, and so makes sense, but it's just another streaming platform to everyone to to have to figure out. It's crazy, though, because honestly, if the Eagles do make it past, in a world where we're speaking more optimistically, the Eagles do get past Tampa Bay. And I do think they can beat Tampa Bay.
Yes.
I do think that is on the table.
They scored 9 points against Carolina last week.
Like, all hope is not lost here, but there's a possibility that the Rams could upset the Lions. It's not inconceivable to me either that the Packers could upset the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys win that game, for what it's worth. I do think the Rams could beat the Lions, and I wouldn't be shocked if that happens. All of a sudden, you're going to Dallas instead of San Francisco? I don't know. I think that's I don't trust this team to win necessarily.
I don't trust anybody to win in Dallas at this point.
No. Yeah, right. The fix is in for sure, but I think that's more manageable than San Francisco, personally. I think this team actually played pretty well against Dallas. They just had turnovers at the worst times. I don't know. I just think maybe there's a world where this is we're sitting here and we're talking about a divisional round, and we're like convincing ourselves that we could be on our way.
Well, the other thing too, and I brought this up on Monday's episode. What was the one big difference, Matt, between the Eagles' 10-1 start and their 1-5 finish?
The big difference, one, Matt Patricia was more involved, and I know you said the Nakobe Dean injury, right, was like the big thing with the rushing defense.
Well, the one big difference was Big Dom was on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Guess who's back for the playoffs?
Uh-oh.
Big Dom. If
you gotta
Eagles
say it like
somehow,
the Club Onyx promotion. You gotta.
We got Big Dom coming out.
Big Dom's the referee for big girls for skinny girls.
Monday night only. DJ Diamond Cuts.
20-cent wings.
Making a movie.
I said, Ludacris, you got to come give the people what you want. He said, okay.
He said, take that, rewind it back.
Unbelievable.
Oh, man. But yeah, Big Dom is back on the sidelines for the Eagles for the playoffs. Which, if they somehow find a way to like play competent offense, I'm fully convinced that Dom DeSandro is actually the offensive coordinator.
Maybe he is the most important linchpin of this team.
He is the ultimate glue guy. I was just talking about Mike Evans. He was drafted in 2014. He would probably, you know how guys being dudes just sit and redraft every NFL draft or NBA draft known to man. Mike Evans would probably go number 1 if we redrafted the 2014 NFL draft.
Who else was in that draft?
So the top 10 was Jadeveon Clowney, Greg Robinson, Blake Bortles, Sammy Watkins, Khalil Mack, Jake Matthews. Mike Evans went number 7. Justin Gilbert, Anthony Barr, Eric Ebron.
I think it'd be somewhere between him and Khalil Mack. Would be the probably the discussion between one and two.
You keep going further, the better the picks got. From picks 9 to 17, it was Anthony Barr, Eric Ebron, Terrell Lewan, Odell Beckham Jr., Aaron Donald, Kyle Fuller.
I think Aaron Donald is probably going number 1 if you.
Ryan Shazier, Zach Martin, C.J. Mosley.
Jesus Christ. I mean, Zach Martin, Donald, Evans, and Mack, and Beckham probably in your top 5, honestly.
And the rest of the first round was Calvin Pryor, Jawan James, Brandon Cooks, HaHa Clinton Dix, Johnny Manziel,
classic,
D. Ford,
D. Ford is good too.
Darquez Dennard, Jason Verrett, Philadelphia Eagles legend Marcus Smith.
Wow.
Deion Buchanan, Kelvin Benjamin, Dominique Easley, Jimmy Ward, Bradley Roby, and Teddy Bridgewater.
Wow. Kelvin Benjamin. Remember when he was going to
tight end Kelvin Benjamin
be the savior for Cam Newton?
It is wild that Mike Evans' college quarterback was Johnny Manziel.
I mean, I haven't watched the Netflix documentary because it just feels like we don't need a documentary on this. It was not that long ago. I guess it was 10 years ago, but that was a crazy. Like you get I think a team like that every like 5 or 6 years in college football. Like I think Joe Burrow and his LSU team were close to this, like where it's like they kind of take on this like real like aura about them, and especially the quarterback. Like if they're the right type of person, Manziel was just like freak off of a leash. Like he was just so entertaining though. And then was obviously great, you know, on the field. But yeah, that was Kingsbury as well. Was with Texas A&M at the time. So
I can't imagine Johnny Manziel in an NIL world.
Well, you know, I remember he got in a lot of trouble because he was like signing helmets
autographs
or whatever in like that hotel room. And Cam Newton around the same time too, like a year or two before, had gotten in trouble for nonsense. Like his dad was like signing stuff. Who cared? Like it was always dumb.
Took Reggie Bush's Heisman away, and then I saw the other day some account posted Caleb Williams in his penthouse that he lives in at USC.
Yeah. Well, I remember reading about Caleb Williams that his parents moved him. He was going to this like elite school in DC, and it was like such a long commute because of like DC traffic. He was like in high school living in an apartment like close to his school because it was just easier. So he's been like groomed and polished to get to this point. It's kind of crazy.
It's nuts. And I mean, you look at the matchup, Eagles-Bucks, like, and obviously we don't have the full injury reports yet because it is the Monday night game, and there is a world where this team can beat Tampa Bay. You did it once this year. You got to step up your game that much more and really, like, dig deep to win this one because the Eagles are an underdog in the sense that nobody believes in them to go and beat Tampa Bay on Monday night whatsoever. I don't know if that entire locker room believes they can go into Tampa Bay and beat them on Monday night. But there's a world where you can go in, and if you play the way you're capable of playing, you can beat Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
You can.
Will you? That's to be determined.
Sure, they can. Anything can happen. We always say that in a really positive way. So, well, anything can happen. You say it in a positive way. I think people always forget, though, like, anything can happen. Anything can happen. It's all on the table.
I have another, like, crazy athlete age for you.
Uh-oh.
Leonard Fournette is only 28 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will say the hairline did not help him.
Valid.
He very quickly looked 38.
He's also looked 30 since he was a freshman.
Yeah.
But that blew my mind, too, that Leonard Fournette, who's on the Buffalo Bills now, is 28 years
Ring
old.
chasing. When the Eagles are out, who are we adopting? Let's get in early so we're not even just... I want the Bills to win so bad, and that was my preseason pick. I had Bills-Eagles Super Bowl.
That's like everyone's
which was the most
dream.
Cursed prediction, I think. Both teams Bills almost didn't make the playoffs.
And somehow ended up with the 2 seed.
And I don't know.
I mean, outside of the Eagles, we have... I think we can quickly eliminate Dallas and San Francisco.
I'm not rooting for them. I would root for the Lions if they made it to...
The Lions are fun. The Bills are fun.
I would root for the Texans.
CJ Stroud's so fun. I mean, Lamar.
I will say it would be Lamar. I love Lamar. It would be hilarious if the Browns,
Joe Flacco,
because if Joe Flacco is the one to do it, and Deshaun has to do like the weird thing where he used to do like the Carson Wentz
goes
thing.
Full Carson Wentz.
But Wentz at least he played almost the whole season and would have been the MVP if you think it. Like Wentz played very well, and it was like, yeah, you definitely helped. Deshaun Watson, you were a hindrance actually. Yeah. Joe Flacco has outplayed you. Joe Flacco has more touchdowns as a Brown than you do.
Did you see the guy with the updated Browns quarterback jersey this past weekend?
I did, and they instead of his name, it was like the abuse survivor flag. That's awesome.
And somehow had the guy who was playing instead of Flacco already on the jersey as well, which was wild. I mean, Lamar's such a good story too, where the build-up of almost gets traded and negotiates his own contract, proves everybody wrong, and then goes out and has...
It's another guy, though, that has to stay away from the salad, stay away from the red meats, because he just...
he poops a lot.
He just... Yeah, whatever, fair enough. Just be mindful.
Lamar's also got some of the most iconic tweets.
Yeah, he's a funny guy.
Of all time. Somebody's been tracking... There's some sort of riddle type of thing, and he responded to it with just Jimmy as the brother's name. And some guy all season has been tracking Lamar's stats since he tweeted Jimmy, and it's just been the most ridiculous numbers ever. Yeah, I think Ravens, Texans, Lions, Bills,
Dolphins would be
on
a personal level fun, but I just don't see it. They keep getting injured.
Rooting for Joe Flacco is also a fun time. I think everyone has Chiefs fatigue.
Yeah, I think everyone's okay with the Chiefs. I think even the Chiefs are okay with them bowing.
The Rams are eh.
Yeah, the Rams, whatever. If they did, I don't really hate any person on the Rams, but there's something about them that I just don't buy into.
And I mean, Green Bay is we're just happy to be here.
Yeah, they feel... It's really
same with Pittsburgh.
Really just Cowboys. I don't care for Pittsburgh. It's Cowboys, 49ers that I would actively dislike. And unfortunately, those are the two most likely representatives.
It would be fun to root for the Lions. I think NFC, the Lions are the lock after the Eagles are eliminated.
It just feels like the Lions are primed for an upset. It just feels like everything is going way too well and people are really bought in, and it's going to be a bad time.
AFC, it's wide open pretty much to have an enjoyable time in the playoffs.
I don't know that I can see anyone beating the Ravens, which is such a bad way to think because someone is absolutely going to beat the Ravens.
Well, if the scriptwriters go crazy, it's the year of Harbaugh.
Yeah. Well, it'd be funny too if it was Ravens 49ers again too. Yeah, I wonder where. I don't. Who's older and who's younger? Is
I think John.
he older?
Let me see. John Harbaugh is 61.
Wow. He's 61.
And Jim is 60.
Damn. John looks young.
John looks fantastic.
Jim does not look 60 either, I wouldn't
No.
say, honestly. Like, he looked, but John, I thought he was
John
like
looks great.
49. Good for him. Jim could end up somewhere.
He screams Chargers.
I don't think Chargers will spend the money. He's going to get paid. Seattle?
A lot of people are saying Dan Quinn's going to go back to Seattle.
Yeah, I did see that.
Which good, get him out of Dallas.
Washington? Maybe like they sell him on like you get to be in on rebuilding. But does he want to? It's about what do they value and what they want.
Right.
They want good ownership. Do they want a good team? Do they want to be able to have like control over personnel?
He'd be so fun with the Falcons if they got a quarterback.
Yeah, Falcons are an interesting job, but it seems like Belichick might be going there, which would be. Maybe he goes Patriots? Who knows?
This might be the most interesting coaching carousel we've had in a while.
And then you have a lot of, like, fresh blood, too, which is really interesting.
Yeah. There's, 8 or 9 offensive coaches that are in the mix, and then another, 8 defensive coaches.
Yeah, you have Raheem Morris in the Rams. He's been in a lot of stuff. Ben Johnson, Mike McDonald. Those kind of the big 3 coordinators. Bobby Slowick apparently is getting head coach calls, so there's a lot of stuff.
There's
a lot of moving
about
parts.
The Cardinals defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Because he's so young. He's 30. But yeah, playoffs are going to be pretty wild. It's a bummer that Texans-Browns aren't the Nickelodeon game.
Who is the Nickelodeon game?
The Nickelodeon game, I believe, is...
Is that Bills Steelers?
Bills Steelers.
I will say Josh Allen...
Josh Allen screams Nickelodeon, as does Mason Rudolph to a degree.
That fits. That just seems like it's going to be an ugly game. God, do I hope the Bills just blow the doors off there.
Yeah, because Browns-Texans are in their traditional Saturday at 4:30 time slot for both of those teams. And then Dolphins-Chiefs is 8 o'clock on Peacock. Steelers-Bills is 1 o'clock. On CBS, which I believe is also simulcast on Nickelodeon. Packers-Cowboys is 4:30 on Fox. And then Rams-Lions is Sunday Night Football on NBC. And then Eagles-Bucks Monday night. Which, I mean, one benefit of the Eagles playing on Monday is at least we have a good broadcast crew.
Yeah, that's true, but
I'll take Joe Buck over.
It looks like getting a rest disadvantage in the playoffs just seems kind of
so bad
bullshit to me. I'm sorry. I just think that shouldn't happen.
Yeah, because we all know that if the NFL would find a way to make the Eagles play on Saturday if they won.
Right. Just seems weird. Seems like a weird thing to do.
So yeah, we'll see how things play out. Obviously, we get the extra day to wait and see what happens for the Eagles, but let's shift gears to the story that's been taking Philly sports Twitter by storm. It's brought to you by Kenwood Beer. You might want to crack open a couple of these while we break down this story. Kenwood Beer, it's a refreshing light beer. It's the official beer of Underground Sports Philadelphia. It's 4.1% ABV, just 120 calories, only 8 grams of carbs. You can get it at the Wells Fargo Center as well. And you can go to kenwoodbeer.com and use the Kenny Finder to see who's got Kenny's on tap in the Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Maryland, and New Jersey areas. You can also get it at your local liquor stores in those markets. Go to kenwoodbeer.com. Got to be 21 or older to do so. And, of course, please drink responsibly. The Flyers, Matt, off the ice, more specifically, kind of caught everyone by surprise as they traded the darling of Team USA in the World Juniors this year, Cutter Gauthier, to the Anaheim Ducks on Monday, right before puck drop against the Penguins, because allegedly Cutter Gauthier informed the Flyers that he did not want to play for them, and then all hell broke loose on the timeline as everyone was trying to figure out what the hell happened. There's alleged burner accounts involved. Anthony Sanfilippo from Crossing Broad gets in the mix with Kevin Hayes. The Spittin' Chicklets guys get involved. It has been quite a whirlwind off the ice involving a 19-year-old who has never played a single second in the NHL.
Yeah, bizarre story. Not something I've ever really feel like I've seen all that much. It's very rare for like prospects to completely snub an organization, especially like he's technically been drafted by the Flyers for a while now. Like it's not like on draft day. It's like no, like that. I think would have been more understandable, because you go through a whole process too with interviews and discussions. So I'm sure someday we will find out maybe more a more full picture of the story. For right now, it's not totally clear, but yeah, just cut off contact and ends up getting moved. From my understanding, though, the prospect they get back is pretty good defenseman,
Making his debut tonight.
Yeah. So I guess
And
they heard that I wasn't interested. And they're like, well, what if we got something so big? They're learning how to get. It's cool that
They're
the Flyers
back to
have
pandering.
They're like, hey, every other Philly sport has all this like weird, like off the field kind of drama stuff. Like we got to figure something out. We could do something like that.
I also think it's kind of unprecedented, especially now, to have like your bigwigs in your front office talking about like saying like, hey, if you don't want to play here, we don't want you.
Yeah.
You don't really hear that from your GMs or your vice presidents of insert sport here operations. That's exactly what Danny Briere and Keith Jones said. And Tortorella's quote in his press conference was hilarious. I don't know who the reporter was, so I apologize for that. But someone asked about Cutter Gauthier, and Tortorella was just like, I don't know Cutter from a hole in the wall.
It makes me think too. Like there's been a lot behind the scenes that again we'll get the fuller picture one day. But, it seems like this has been going on for a while now too. Like with the lack of contact, and I have to imagine that's frustrating when you've invested a lot in this person. And it's one thing for them to express, a feeling of not wanting to really be committed. It's another thing if they're just being completely ghosted by them. So I can understand maybe some of that frustration.
And apparently, Gauthier's like one connection to the Flyers was Kevin Hayes. They obviously not at the same time, but attend the same college. And there's rumors that Kevin Hayes told Gauthier about Tortorella and how he's not like the most ideal coach to play for. And then there's another report that comes out that allegedly the inexperienced GM was a reason. But you force your way to Anaheim, where their GM got hired for the first time to do that role last season. So that one kind of doesn't check out there for me, at least. But then somebody posted Kevin Hayes' Wikipedia page, and Kevin Hayes kind of did the same exact thing with the Chicago Blackhawks in 2014, where he ghosted them, told them he wasn't going to play for them, and then that's how he ended up with the Rangers. So it is kind of, a lot of coincidental dot connecting there. But man, welcome to your villain arc, Cutter Gauthier, because the first time you come to Philadelphia, you are going to, he goes by his real name's William. He's going to get the ultimate Billy chance anytime he steps foot in the Wells Fargo Center.
It's not a great way to start your career, because you've already now, and by the way, this is something that I think Philly does embrace in some ways, is being the villain, and that I don't even know if they are the villain in the story. Who knows? But they will certainly embrace booing you, and you already have one franchise that hates you, and now the pressure is on already. When you're a top pick in any sport, but it just feels like bad advice, bad decision making, because I think there was probably a better way for this to get resolved than it has now.
And I saw Pete Blackburn, who does the national hockey podcast for the All City Network, and he basically said this is good for the Flyers because it feels like they kind of got some of like their character back and kind of like their what they're known for back with this move happening, and Danny Briere not afraid to sling it in his press conference saying, hey, if you don't want to be here, we don't want you. Same thing with Keith Jones and a bunch of the Flyers front office people just flat out saying that. And I was like, yeah, it makes sense. The Flyers, he was basically saying the Flyers haven't really been relevant in terms of like one way or the other of opposing fan bases and teams like loving or hating them. And now, like, hey, you're making it known, like, if you don't want to be in Philadelphia, if you don't want to play for the Flyers and make it be known, like, hey, like, I'm going to do whatever it takes for this team to succeed, then get the fuck out, as Garrett Stubbs once said.
Yeah, honestly. Fair enough.
But it has been a wild whirlwind. And, I mean, if it did happen to the alleged fans that have been DMing Kevin Hayes and talking about, death threats and all that kind of shit, you're all pieces of shit. Like, don't do that type of stuff. Like, that's just so uncalled for. It's like, did Kevin Hayes have anything to do with it? Who fucking knows? But there's no need to go and attack a guy and his family, especially, when he was here, he was beloved. But, I mean, the trade has gone through, and I think Danny Briere said this too, like, his Cutter Gauthier's value is not going to be any higher, and you capitalized on that by getting a top-flight defenseman prospect, and you also got a second-round pick out of this. So, I mean, you capitalized on a dude's performance in the World Juniors and probably wouldn't have gotten anything close to it if you waited any longer.
Yeah.
So, we love a good online saga that probably will have more wrinkles to it as the days go by, but team that is known for online sagas is the Philadelphia 76ers, and somehow they've avoided most of the online sagas lately. Brought to you by our pals over at FOCO, the place for forever collectibles. They've got tons of Sixer stuff, tons of Philadelphia sports collectibles, merchandise, apparel, for you to represent your team with pride. Click the link in the description. Check out everything they have to offer, from the velour tracksuits, the overalls, the awesome sun hats, and of course what they're most known for is those bobbleheads. Click the link in the description. Check out our pals at FOCO. Go support them. They are one of our favorite brands to work with. So go support FOCO. Click that link in the description and get your forever collectibles today. The Sixers bet Joel Embiid not going to be playing tonight against the Hawks. If he misses 9 more games, he loses his eligibility for the MVP award.
Yeah. Who cares? He wasn't winning the MVP anyway. It's all narrative driven, and it sucks, but he's having a better season than he did last year. But because of his performance in the playoffs, it was just not going to happen. So, which is, again, dumb and not fair to him. But also, that's the new rule with the attendance policy. So, whatever. Very stupid. But our Sixers looking nice.
Looking nice. 1-point lead over the Hawks right now.
Anthony Melton back tonight.
Wanted to get your thoughts on the Dejounte Murray rumor mill. It doesn't make sense to me.
I just don't love him, honestly.
Yeah.
Not
like the fit doesn't seem there.
I think that the Sixers will probably make a move at the deadline. But it's weird because they're kind of caught between, I think, two ideas, which is, I do think there's a part of this organization that does want to get and be like the cap space team this summer, because that does give you a huge advantage because you're going to be one of the only competitors with that ability. But you also have a lot of depth and Embiid playing very well, and there's no guarantee that you get another year of Embiid. Like he just is, like, the nature of the sport and of big men is that, he could get injured. It's just there's a lot that can change. You can't take it. You can't just assume that next year at this time the team will be in a similar position in terms of talent and availability. So I do think there's definitely credence to not going all in, but making a big move at the deadline. I'm not sure if Murray's that guy. But I do think this team is going to be very active. They're going to be like linked to every single player that's available, and I think they should be kicking the tires on everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Kevin Herter's name thrown in the mix. There's a couple other guys.
I will never forget watching him back Seth Curry down from like the half court line. It was.
I mean, we've talked about some other guys too, like how funny it would be if Markelle Fultz came back with him kind of not being too in the mix with the Magic anymore, with all the guys that they have, and there's been if the Pacers somehow continue to fall out, and obviously Halliburton got injured, do you swing for T.J. McConnell again? Like there's been a lot of
John Moran is out for the season now too. You know, like your Grizzlies, maybe they're not going to be selling off big pieces, but you know, maybe you find yourself, maybe that opens up a third team. Yeah, like there's, you know, the situation is fluid, and
is there enough room in the doghouse for a Marcus Smart?
Marcus Smart has been bad, so Marcus Smart would, I think, be one of the most frustrating people to watch. But I would say, like, I would probably take Marcus Smart on this team. I don't know.
Because, I mean, you look at the teams that are completely out of the mix right now in the East. It's obviously the Pistons, Wizards, and Hornets. You brought up Gordon Hayward a couple weeks ago, too, where, like, that could be somebody that potentially the Sixers, you know, see what it's going to take there. But those seem to be the three teams that are locks to be out. They don't even have double-digit wins right now. Hawks are, you know, 7 games under 500. The Raptors are 7 games under 500. The Nets, you know, they're a fringe play-in tournament team right now. Those are kind of your teams in the East, and who knows what happens with the Bulls down the stretch, obviously. And then in the West, it's Spurs are 5-30, Blazers are 10-26, Grizzlies with John Morant out now, but they're 14-23. The Warriors, Jonathan Kuminga's name's been thrown around a bunch as well. You know, who knows what happens with the Lakers implosion, if that continues to boil. And then the Jazz are the 11 seed in the West right now. But
bring Lauri Markkanen to me.
He's always felt like a guy who was destined to be a Sixer, but never would be.
I love Lauri Markkanen. One of the most inexplicable NBA crushes. I don't know why, but I've always liked Markkanen.
One of the other things that I saw this week too was Tyrese Maxey was on $1 Million Worth of Game last week and talked about how last year when he broke his foot and then was coming off the bench, how it kind of affected him in a way where, you know, he was calling his mom some nights and it's like, hey, I feel sick. Like, I don't know, like, what I'm going to be able to do. Like, I know I'm better than a player that should be coming off the bench, but, you know, I just got to swallow it and kind of do what's best for the team. And you could kind of hear it in Maxey's voice about how that affected him. And we kind of had that hunch too, where it was like, he's not playing his style of game. And then obviously when you saw him get back in the starting lineup, it really clicked for him again. But it is interesting to kind of see athletes peel that back and have that confidence going on a platform like $1 Million Worth of Game, or, you know, when we have guys on this show, even like to kind of peel back that curtain that you don't traditionally get from athletes.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool insight.
And then Pat Bev and $1 Million Worth of Game, they did a crossover episode, and Pat Bev was talking about how after the Miami Heat loss on Christmas, he kind of got in Maxey's ear in a way to like fire him up in a sense, and it was like, I don't think you got that in you, man. I don't think you got it in you. And then obviously the next game was that Houston game. He drops 42, I think it was, and then the next game drops like 30 plus. And Pat Bev was talking about, you know, no matter what team I'm on, like, I want my young guys to succeed at all measures. Like, it's not about me, it's about these guys' legacies and everything. And, you know, as much as we've goofed on Pat Bev in the past, like, he really does feel like such a good glue guy when it comes to off the court stuff, and having a team with like a Tyrese Maxey, and you've seen him play with guys like Anthony Edwards. Like, everyone talks so glowingly about what Pat Bev does for them off the court, and I think it's been a big benefit to have him on this team.
Yeah, I mean, Harden last year too was like a great mentor and like partner with Maxie, and Maxie talked a lot about how like working with him and like talking to him like really helped him develop his game. So yeah, it's nice that Maxie's just great. He's
so pure.
He's just the best, man. If every player had like his work ethic and his he's fantastic.
Last bit here, that was kind of about an hour and a half before we started recording. Philadelphia Union re-signed Kai Wagner.
Yeah, a little surprising because it just seemed like even before his racial abuse incident, like they were going to be splitting ways. They couldn't come to an agreement about a contract extension, about his worth and his value. And then again, obviously, he racially abuses Bobby Wood. He gets suspended for that, and he still has to serve the final game of that suspension. But they signed a 3-year contract extension. On a personal level, like the respect for him is gone. What he did to me is like just personally, like that's not something you just forgive. I hope that he's like genuinely taking the steps to not be that person and not do stuff like that. Speaking purely sport-wise, he is kind of an irreplaceable player. It was going to be a huge challenge to replace him. So on the field, it's a huge move for the Union, and I think is a statement of intent too that maybe they're going to be willing to reach into the pocketbooks. I don't know if that's going to apply to signing players, but in terms of at least retaining guys, maybe this is a step in a good direction. But hope he clears his act up because what he did was just awful. And yeah, that's really it.
Yeah, story in the Inquirer from Jonathan Tannenwald at the goalkeeper on Twitter. We'll link it in the description as well. Talked about how Wagner had to do MLS ordered and league mandated education program and, quote, remain in full compliance with a program directed by a league appointed restorative practices expert. And in early December, Tanner said Wagner was, quote, regretting everything and, quote, doing a fantastic job with those programs. And because of when the Union were eliminated from the playoffs, he still has to serve that one-game suspension, like you said, so he'll miss the regular season opener on February 24th against Chicago, but the suspension does not apply to the CONCACAF Champions Cup, so he'll be able to play in the first-round series against Costa Rica's Saprissa on February 20th on the road and February 27th at home.
Yeah, so got that to look forward to.
Some other things in the article, too. They talked about Bedoya and how he hasn't signed anywhere else yet, so they'll see how that kind of, plays out, and then it seems like even though he's with the team now, Julian Carranza probably going to be sold off at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, going to be interesting offseason. Still plenty of time for moves, but
if you want to call it an offseason.
We're coming up. We're coming up on something now. So
it's I've been having a bunch of people talk to me about it too. They're like, the Union season is so long.
February to
December.
October, November,
and MLS is a whole
December.
December.
If you're like, yeah, like it's a lot.
Like they have a preseason game. What, next week?
Something like that. Yeah.
Like that's.
I mean, you're just like a month and a week away from CONCACAF Champions League being back up. Soccer in general is just always a quick turnaround. Like the European leagues stop in like mid-May usually, and they're back training July 1st usually. Like that first week of July is when players come back. So you have, a month and a half, maybe like you really usually only have like 2 or 3 weeks as a player off, and then league games usually start up like second week of August. So it's always a quick turnaround.
Almost back. So we'll see how things play out for the Union, but make sure you guys are following us on the socials at Underground PHI. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Facebook.com/UndergroundSportsPHI, Twitch.tv/UndergroundSportsPHI. You can follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Castorina. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts in audio form. Keep on subscribing. It helps us hit new milestones. Leave a 5-star review. Subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel as well. YouTube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. It's where you get full video episodes of this show twice a week. Every show on our network. Live streams, original video content, clips, shorts, you name it. It's on our YouTube channel. Got to get to 800 subscribers before the end of January. We're 85 away. Let's make that happen. I think that's an attainable goal for everybody to kind of pull through and get us to our next milestone on YouTube. YouTube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. Get your merch at phiapparel.co. Use code UNDERGROUND for 10% off your order. And this show is presented by the City of Vineland, and whether you're a company looking to expand, relocate, or you're a new business startup, selecting the right location is critical to your success. Vineland, New Jersey offers both an affordable business location and an excellent quality of life. The city's economic development department is a one-stop source for moving your project through the development and approval process, and their goal is to make this process as smooth as possible and to provide the fastest turnaround times in the region. If you're considering potential locations for your operation, contact the Vineland Economic Development Team at 856-794-4100. That's 856-794-4100. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always a growing season. And big thank you to Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated and Security 21 Security Systems for their continued support of this podcast. It's been episode number 602 of Underground Sports Philadelphia. For Matt, I'm KB. We'll catch you guys next time. We'll have another show before Monday Night Football, so stay tuned for that. But until then, we're getting the heck up out of here. We are signing off. Peace.